Welcome back to For the Elevate. This is now our 8th episode. We hope you are enjoying our chosen topics because we're having a great time sharing our insights and tips with you. And just maybe our conversations are providing you with a few of those aha moments to help you deal with the many challenges in your day. And maybe you even woke up today feeling a bit overwhelmed, thinking, I can't continue doing everything myself, or you're feeling isolated or disconnected with all the remote work. Or maybe you're feeling completely micromanaged and not finding the joy in what you do anymore. The three of us have been there and we can so relate. So no time better than now to discuss collaboration. As women, we often have this urge to do everything on our own. But quite frankly, we can't or shouldn't do it on our own. It's time to be open to collaboration and how that can actually bring out the best in all of us. Collaboration is a journey of new perspectives, vulnerability, and curiosity. And how do we get there? Well, we get there by listening. So Leana will kick off this very curious journey into listening more and talking less.
Welcome back. We're glad you're here to watch us have a discussion about important leadership stuff for the Elevate. Last time we got together, we talked about perfection, and that was an interesting conversation, all of us being recovered perfectionists. And I think it's interesting. I wanted to talk to you about when there's perfectionism and trying to do everything by yourself, I think is part of that because you want to have control over your whatever it is that you want to be perfect. But I wanted to talk to you about collaboration today. Thoughts?
Oh, well, people love to be controlled and micromanaged.
Yes.
All right, I'm joking.
Especially the three of us.
Yeah. I've actually never met anyone who did, but yeah, collaboration is so important in leadership, and the world is confusing and chaotic and disrupted enough where no one person can do it on their own. So we have to learn to collaborate with each other to bring the best out of each other and find the best solutions.
Yeah, I think that's so important. And I think collaboration, when you do everything yourself, you also stop the learning for so many others. And for the Elevate, it's really important to keep learning all along the way. And that's the big part of collaboration. Everyone gets to learn, not just one or two people. So I think we always have to keep that in mind.
And it's not always perfectionism that makes a person want to handle everything themselves. But if you have a leader, for example, just throwing out scenarios now, if you have a leader who doesn't like to collaborate, because it should happen at all levels.
Absolutely.
Is there an approach to try and encourage that, or are you just kind of on your own if you want to collaborate?
We were just actually interviewing somebody who was in I'm strong, I'm making good decisions, and I'm just telling people what they need to do, thinking that was a really positive way to move the organization forward. And she's actually alienating everyone she comes in contact with. So, one of the first skills around collaboration is learning to listen, not talk. And it's a really important skill. We talk about it, but literally listen, and listen with a willingness to change your mind or your perspective, and be open, which means stop talking.
Yeah, stop talking is quite difficult for so many. And we've seen that, the leader that just comes into the room and immediately takes over a meeting. I'm sure we've all been in meetings where the individuals have talked to you before the meeting to say it's really important for me to get this point across. And then the leader comes in and dominates the discussion, and that individual becomes so intimidated that they never get the real points out on the table. And those are the things that can change the course of whatever project you're working on, but they're too intimidated to say anything. So we do have to just stop and listen and understand that a group has a lot to give.
Right. And that's truly listen, not formulating your next statement while the other person's still talking.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know that.
Which is easy to do, which makes it kind of tough to listen.
Yeah, you're
but
not fully there.
yeah, but part of listening too is just demonstrating some empathy, meaning I'm curious about what you think. I'm curious about your experience. I want to understand your view because it's important, and you're important. So when I'm listening to you, that is the message I'm giving. You're important, you are valued, and I want to hear what you have to say. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think sometimes too, leaders quite often think that collaboration means, well, I'm going to collaborate with everyone, but you're going to do it my way. Like, well, that's
Yeah.
not collaboration.
That's it. Yeah, not good. But I also think that generationally, I slide into that conversation periodically, but millennials and Gen Zs, they come into an organization with an attitude of collaboration. Like they want to work with somebody versus for somebody, from what I'm seeing. So if we're not collaborating, I think that creates a huge issue. Thoughts on that?
Oh yeah, I think that's part of the people leaving the workplace and the churn, because people want to be a part of something meaningful, which is not working in the basement by yourself doing something that someone else thinks is important. So that purposeful work with others is I mean, we all desire that, but the younger generation, I would say, expects it, and they're going to move on if they don't get it.
Yeah.
And there's plenty of tools out there, especially in this remote learning. There's plenty of tools to help you be collaborative, and organizations can utilize those. But I think those younger generations, they're much better at finding fun ways to do that as well, rather than just, oh, let's just Zoom it. Okay, well, but how can we make that a real collaborative, interesting time, and so that we all get something out of it? I think they're very good at being creative along those lines. And, so it's kind of nice that we can learn something from them.
There's so much to learn, on both sides. Absolutely. I totally agree. And I think we've all seen situations where a leader who's running an organization is not open to that collaboration, not open to letting people work from home, which, look, that's become a thing too, where if they don't have that, they're not going to stick around. And then the irony of the whole thing is that at some point he starts holding his leaders that report to him accountable for the amount of turnover that they're having. Right? I mean, it's just this ridiculous
every time.
All the time. And I'm thinking, what do you not see? They're not listening to the people who are boots on the ground.
Well, and information gets filtered as it goes up. So they, even if they are listening, they're getting very different information than the conversation that's going down with the people who actually do the everyday work. So it's important to know that your messages are filtered and find other ways to check in. And we've talked about that too. Just walking around is a good way to hear what's going on and ask questions. Lots of questions.
Yeah, I think asking the questions is so important. But it's what we often see too is, we often see women who have gotten into those positions and they decide that they've had those specific role models and they've had to really fight their way to get to the top, and they've had to do certain things to get to the top, and then they forget what it's like to be on that journey, right? Which is so important. And so they stop the listening, they stop the collaborating, they stop the walk-arounds. They've forgotten to make time on their schedules for so many of those things. And we as women need to really help other women understand that they can do it all. They really can. But it's more fun to do it with others along the way, rather than just being that person who's trudging up that hill all by themselves.
Not to speak of the amount of empowerment that you create in the people that you're collaborating with.
Exactly.
I mean, that's
And it's important to like create win-win scenarios. So collaboration has technical skills and lots of relational social skills. And we need both. They're both so important, but like those win-win interactions, it's checking in and figuring out, what do you need? What do you need from this? Because if I can figure that out, and maybe we can figure out a new solution. And it's also about you expressing what you need. Here's what I need from this. And when you can get that kind of stuff out on the table, people can have real conversations and feel like, oh, well, there's an opening here for us to explore and maybe come up with a solution that works for both of us.
Yeah, fantastic. I like collaborating on this podcast. Go ahead, Bridget.
Exactly. No, I was just going to say, one of the really cool things I think you can also do is executives could have like reverse mentoring going on, which kind of leads to collaboration, right? So you go down levels in the organization and you have them mentor you.
Yeah.
That can be a really cool exercise. It can be very eye-opening, especially with a lot of the things going on in this crazy world today. And you normally wouldn't hear that. So it is a form of collaboration. And I think it can yield amazing results.
I have an example of that.
Please.
The CEO of a hospital that I worked with, she was sending out these newsletters, here's what's going on in the organization. And this little young nurse said to her, these are so boring. Nobody's reading these, right? And she said, well, I thought they were reading them. And she said, why don't you try communicating in tweets and she gave her like several different recommendations, off the cuff podcast. And the CEO said, would you mentor me in that? And she did. And so they started this, and we all knew what was going on, and it was kind of fun to watch. And she'd send out a new video cast, and everybody's like, did you see that? That was so cool. And then this young nurse would critique her afterwards. You need to lighten up a little bit, be yourself. You're so coming across really stiff, and it got better and better and better. It was very fun.
That would be so cool. Plus, again, that leads to other opportunities then to not only do the exact same thing, but to collaborate, to really have those discussions and work together. I think that's so cool.
Yeah. If all leaders were as open to things like that and hearing other people's ideas, I mean, there's a million brilliant ideas out there. If you're not listening and collaborating, paying attention.
Right.
So much.
Well, and I think when everyone saw her putting herself out there, and she talked about it, I feel really vulnerable. I don't know what I'm doing. It just made you love her, made you want to hear her messages and kind of cheer her on, and it did a lot for the organization.
Yeah. Be real. Keep it real.
Real.
Gotta do it.
Absolutely. Collaboration. So that's a big topic. I love that we got to talk about that today. It's important. Do it for the Elevate, and we'll see you next time.
Collaboration is such an important skill, and we're hoping as you listened that you had one of those aha moments that I talked about very early on. So now we come to one of our favorite moments when we get to end our chats with a funny quote to think about when those days get just a little bit too hard, a little too heavy. If you've been listening, we ever so fondly refer to them as titter times. So here's a fun one, especially given our topic of collaboration and listening. So here we go. If you think I talk too much, let me know. We can talk about it. All right, we aren't sure who said that, but it put a smile on our face. And hopefully it put one on yours as well. So to complete this episode, please don't forget to leave us comments. Let us know if collaboration is in your future. Are you leaning towards listening more and developing that curiosity needed to understand others' views? Will you be open to changing your mind? Well, we certainly hope so. And of course, let us know what you would like to hear more about in future episodes. Until next time, keep moving towards a healthier you. Do it for the Elevate.